Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Bible study from headquarters. So now we come to chapter 13, and we're getting into the part of the Bible that we go into every year at the Passover. It's a very familiar section of the Bible, tremendously inspiring and tremendously instructive, loaded with spiritual meat, so we'll begin to go through that now. And next year, around Passover time, we'll read through these chapters at the Passover, as you know, and as you are aware. It says here in chapter 13, verse 1, "Now before the feast of the Passover," which it is a feast. It's not a holy day, but it is a feast. "Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him." Now, where it says there, the supper being ended, a better translation is during supper. They were having a supper. They were having the Passover meal. And during that meal, he got up and instituted a wonderful part of the Passover service. So during supper, it says supper being ended, but a better translation, during supper, and you can read that in other translations, and in the RSV you can read that. During supper, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from the Father and went to God, or was going to go back to God, he rose from supper. See verse 4 shows that. They were having supper, and then he rose from supper to carry out a very important practice here. He rises from supper and laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself, his outer garments. And he made it easier to do this by laying aside his over garments, so to speak. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then comes he to Simon Peter, and Peter said unto him, Lord, do you wash my feet? Are you going to wash my feet? You see, this foot washing was a practice in the Middle East that was relegated to the servant of the house. It wasn't one that was highly desired, this particular responsibility. People would be walking along the dusty roads and paths in the Middle East. Their feet would be dirty, and they would come to a home and be invited in, and the servant of the house would get a big bucket or a pan, and they'd sit down, and he'd wash the dirt off their feet and clean them up and wipe them off. Then they could go on into the house. It was a very humble responsibility. It showed humility. It wasn't one that people who were full of themselves wanted to do. And so Jesus Christ, he could have gone through and said, okay, I'll wash your hands, or let me give you a drink. No, he chose to do the most humble, and in some ways, in the minds of some people, humiliating responsibility of a servant to someone else, washing their feet. But he was doing this to show them, listen, we are to be humble and we're to be servants. We're not to be the high and mighty. We're to be the humble servants, thinking of other people, we who are servants of God. And so I'm showing you by example what you are going to have to be like if you're going to be my disciples. And Simon said, well, you can't do this to me. I mean, here you are the Son of God, and you're going to wash my feet. Oh, you can't do that. I'm not worthy of you doing that. And so Peter said, do you wash my feet? And Jesus answered and said unto him, what I do you know not now, but you shall know hereafter. Peter, you're not converted yet. You don't really fully understand why I'm doing this, but you will later. And Peter said unto him, you shall never wash my feet. There's no way that's going to happen. And Jesus answered him, if I wash you not, you have no part with me. If you are not going to be able to humble yourself to let me wash your feet, and then later on to humble yourself to wash somebody else's feet, you're not going to have any part in my church and any part in my kingdom. You have to be willing to serve others, and you have to be willing to let others serve you if you're going to be my people and be in my church and in my work. And so he told him, you have no part with me. And now here's Simon Peter's attitude. He had problems, and he was still carnal, but he also had a love for Jesus Christ, and he had an attitude that Christ could work with that later on led to his conversion. Verse 9, Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, in that case, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Well, if it's so important to wash my feet, just wash me all over and let's get it done right. See, he just didn't understand fully. And Jesus said unto him, he that is washed, he that has had a bath, needs not to be washed all over, needs not to be bathed again, but he needs to have his feet washed. He that is washed needs not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit, spiritually speaking. And you are clean, but not all. Peter, you don't need a bath. That's not what this is about. This is a ceremony teaching humility and service. And so you don't need a bath, but you do need to have your feet washed. That depicts this ceremony of serving and being served. And so then you're going to be my servant. You're going to be my disciple. But you've had a bath, and then he used a spiritual analogy again. But is clean every whit, but you are clean, but not all. In other words, he was referring to Judas Iscariot there. You're all clean. I'm working with you. You're my disciples. You're spiritually coming along very well, except for one of you. And that one is right here with us. For he knew who should betray him. Therefore said he, you are not all clean, spiritually speaking, not physically speaking. So after he had washed their feet and had taken his garments and was set down again, he said unto them, know you what I've done to you? Do you know what this is all about? You don't, do you? You know what taking a bath is all about. And you know what washing somebody's feet is all about when they come into your home from a dusty walk along a dusty path just to get their feet clean. But do you know the principle that I'm teaching here? Do you understand the deeper meaning of me, your Savior, washing your feet? And you've already had a bath, but I'm washing your feet anyway. Well, let me explain. Verse 13. You call me Master and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, and the feet weren't dirty. That wasn't the point. He wasn't washing their dirty feet to make their feet clean. He was washing their feet as a symbolic ceremony to teach a very powerful spiritual lesson. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. And there's the command. We are to have the foot washing service at the Passover to teach the lesson of humility and service to one another, and of being willing to have others serve us. Some people are so self-righteous they won't let anybody do anything for them. They'll do things for others that makes them feel good, but they won't let anybody do anything for them. They're too self-righteous for that. We're supposed to serve others, but we're supposed to be thankful and let others serve us. You also ought to wash one another's feet. It's very clear that that should be done. Verse 15, for I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. I'm instituting this ceremony as a part of the Passover. I've done it, and so you need to do it, and here's why you should do it. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. It's about serving and about humility. Now, notice the blessings that come with obeying him, verse 17. If you know these things, happy are you if you do them. Serving others is going to make you happy. Serving God is going to make you happy. Giving makes you happy, and it makes others happy. That's the beauty about giving and serving. The one that is served is happy, and the one who does the serving is happy. It's a win-win situation. And so he's saying this is all a part of helping you have a happy life, a life of giving and serving and helping others. And then the ones that are being helped are happy, and you who help them are happy. And then they'll serve you, and the happiness just keeps on going, and the joy from serving gets spread around in every direction. That's the origin of the foot washing service that we have in God's church every year at Passover time, and that's what it's about. And it's for baptized members who take the Passover. Verse 18, I speak not of you all, I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled. He that eats bread with me has lifted up his heel against me. Speaking to his disciples there, and he said, I'm talking to you, but there's one here that is not like you. And so I'm not including him in the same things I'm including you in. He's lifted up his heel against me. Now I tell you before it comes, that when it is come to pass, you may believe that I am he. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receives whomsoever I send receives me, and he that receives me receives him that sent me. You know, brethren, John 13, verse 20 is a tremendous example of the principle of church government. It's all contained right there in that verse, this matter of church government. I'm not talking about man's government. I'm not talking about man's way of governing in the church or in a company or in society. I'm talking about government in God's church, where things are done his way and structured according to his will. And there is power and authority and government in the church, but it's all about love. It's all about serving. It's loving service. It's being there for other people and helping other people and helping the church, taking care of the church, leading the church, protecting the church, teaching the church, correcting the church, loving the church. And the authority that the ministry have comes from God. And then that's to be used with God's love for his people, for their blessings and benefit. And that's what he's saying here. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receives whomsoever I send receives me. I'm backing him up. You reject him, you reject me. It's like, God told Samuel, they've not rejected you, they've rejected me when they wanted Saul to be their king or when they wanted a king. They've not rejected you, Samuel, they've rejected me. I put you in office, Samuel. They've rejected you, they've rejected me. Who put you in office? He that receives whomsoever I send receives me, and he that receives me receives him that sent me. So it goes all the way to God the Father. We receive the authority that God has put in the ministry. We receive the authority then that God gave Jesus Christ, and therefore we receive the authority that God has. It's all connected, and it's a tremendous example of proper, loving, kind, gentle, caring, but powerful church government from God and in his church. When Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit, and testified and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you that one of you shall betray me. Then the disciples looked one on another, doubting of whom he spoke, or perplexed about it, wondering, who's he talking about? Now there was leaning on Jesus' bosom one of his disciples whom Jesus loved. That was probably John. And it's not that he was laying on Jesus Christ. He was sitting next to him. He was close to him. He leaned over maybe and kind of got closer on his shoulder there, or maybe a little bit there close to his mouth so he could hear. And he was right there close to Jesus Christ so we could hear everything he said. And he was very, very in close proximity to him. Other translations say sitting close to Jesus Christ, reclining close to Jesus Christ. And Simon Peter, verse 24, therefore beckoned to him that he should ask who it should be of whom he spoke. You're sitting over there right by him. Ask him who it is and then tell us. He then, leaning back on Jesus' chest, his shoulder, so he could say it to him quietly, said unto him, Lord, who is it? And Jesus answered, He it is to whom I shall give a sop, a piece of bread, so he could sop the dish with it, when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And after the sop, Satan entered into him, and then Jesus said unto him, that you do quickly. Imagine. Simon became possessed by Satan himself. Satan, the devil himself, possessed Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. So I didn't see Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, but it wasn't Simon that was possessed. It was Judas Iscariot. And after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, that you do quickly, speaking to Judas Iscariot. Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this unto him. What's he talking about? Why did he say this to him? For some of them thought because Judas had the bag, the money bag, that Jesus had said unto him, buy those things that we have need of for the feast, or against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. He then, having received the sop, went immediately out, and it was night. And so now it was all set in motion that would bring about his crucifixion. The steps that led to his crucifixion were now set in motion. Verse 31, therefore when he was gone out, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. It's all started now. If God be glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him. It's coming very quickly now. Little children, yet a little while I'm with you. You shall seek me, and as I said unto the Jews, where I go you cannot come, so now I say unto you. A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. He says, I'm going back to my Father. You can't come there. But I'm giving you a new commandment. Here's the kind of love I want you to have for one another. You love one another as I've loved you, and that you love one another. What kind of love am I talking about? The kind of love that I have had for you. A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. That's not just an ordinary emotional attachment. That's not just kind of fondness. That's a tremendous, intense love of commitment and loyalty, of service, and of giving. That's a special love. As I have loved you, that's the kind of love you need to have for one another, that you also love one another. Verse 35, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. That's one of the telltale signs of where God's true church is. One of the telltale signs of where God's people are. And that is the tremendous love they have for one another. The love, the loyalty, the service, the commitment that is clearly there. And we have that in the enduring church of God, and it's growing on a daily basis, and it's a wonderful thing to see and a tremendous blessing to be a part of. And he said, that's how others will know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. That's one of the main ways. Verse 36, Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, where are you going? And Jesus answered, where I go, you cannot follow me now, but you shall follow me afterwards. And Peter said unto him, Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for your sake. Well, he said, Christ knew he was going to be crucified. And he was telling them, you can't come and have this done. And you can't come with me to the Father. And Peter said, well, I can come, and I will do whatever it takes to go where you go. And I'll lay down my life for you and for your sake. And Jesus answered him, will you lay down your life for my sake, Peter? Will you? Verily, verily, I say unto you, the rooster will not crow till you have denied me 3 times. See, he was still carnal. But later on, Peter did lay down his life for Christ. He was martyred and actually was crucified. And some pretty reliable traditional sources say crucified upside down. Terrible death, but he laid it all on the line for Jesus Christ rather than forsake Jesus Christ and turn his back on his truth later on as the chief apostle. Okay, we'll stop there. Until next time, this is Charles Bryce with the Enduring Church of God.